So it is 10:42. It's still December 26th. I think I made like 4 videos today. Um, Crap, I just forgot exactly what I wanted to make this one about. Oh, so I am at a shelter. I went to the Special Victims Unit here in New York and I made a report and I asked for assistance. And the Special Victims Unit says they can't help me, even though I told them that I am being SEX trafficked, I am being placed in SEX rackets, I am being bought and sold, and in the last 3 weeks, I have been RAPE'd 4 times? Four that I know of. Let's put it that way. Five, actually. Five that I know of. Because there was a humiliation ritual that these girls did to me recently here. So, how is the Special Victims Unit for assisting in trafficked victims and supposed to uphold the Trafficked Victims Protection Act of 2000, not able to help a trafficked victim? Fascinating. I wanted to I'll make one more. Maybe I'll make the two that's on my mind right now. Two more correlations. I believe as a targeted individual, as being experimented on anyway, that potentially all of us are adopted, whether we believe it or not. It was hard for me to believe it. I still, at the end of the day, I'm 39. At the end of the day, my life back then, my mother was my mother. I really don't care biological who it is now. It's the fact that the person who raised me mothered me, therefore she is my mother. That's the way I define it. But we are adopted, and in New York, one of the adoption agencies for a long time that did experimentation on twins and triplets and eventually possibly cloning people to have twins and triplets, et cetera, and doing the concept of apartheid so that they knew the ancestry, so that they could continue specific genetic appearances. What is it? Louise Wise Services. That was in the early 1900s to I don't know when, but I decided to look them up again recently. Now, I talk about adoption agencies. This is the beginning part of human trafficking and cannibalism, using humans to feed us as well as torture to feed people that do satanic rituals. Let's not talk about spirituality exactly, and let's not talk about religion either. But let's just talk about that, the cult, because it exists. Whatever they believe, we're not going to get into that, okay? So the adoption agencies and orphanages, foster homes, that was the original human trafficking, enslavement after, African American slavery ended. They needed a new way to enslave people and use them for their bidding, whoever, and I say they, I'm being generic. At some point we could talk about that, but the shadow government, the elites, let's just call them elites, the people that have the most authority and power and money. Okay, that's who they is. And that can be a large genre. You pick and choose however you want to believe it, okay? Let's just debunk this conspiracy. So, orphanages, it's basically used to traffic humans for whatever purposes, organ harvesting, buying to the highest bidder for torture, bleeding out, doing whatever they want, torture, sexual assaults, physical assaults, which seems to be what they did to me a lot of the time, having me naked in the middle of the street or something and putting me through pain and beating me up. And I'm like, wow, a bunch of cowards. Do it to me while I'm awake. Anyway, Louise Wise Services is no longer an adoption agency. It is now a food bank. How do you go from an adoption agency to being a food bank? Because part of, let's even talk about animals. What do we do with animals? We raise them. Some people are disgusting and they like bestiality. And for example, cows, when they reach a certain age and their meat is ripe, what do? We kill them and we eat them, right? We use them for meat, we distribute them around. That's the same thing that the elites and the satanic occultists, Masons, Eastern Stars, whoever does these blood rituals, that's what they do. And since those are the ones that have become the main power and authority with finances to back them up, that they've stolen, by the way, from people that are targeted, individuals, they're targeted for their inheritance. They're harassed into being discredited for mental illness, or they commit suicide, or they commit a crime so that they have no faculties to investigate their finances. That's the whole point of it. So now I just want to make that point. How do you go from an adoption agency to food source? Because this is the agenda. Do you understand? One other concept I want to talk about. Now I will get a little spiritual. Separation of church and state was a new thing that we quote unquote created. It doesn't exist. Church and state still exist together. Why do you think that we're funding things that are happening in Jerusalem and Israel? Why do you think we're funding the hush-hush concepts about don't talk bad about Jews or the Jewish community? We're not really talking about the actual Jewish community. We're talking about the Judahs that came in the guise of calling themselves Jewish. My great-grandmother was Jewish. She gave her inheritance to my grandmother who gave it to me. I am partly Jew. And I'm targeted. I'm also adopted. People have also tried to harvest my organs. This is not all coincidental. The Jewish community, the true Jews, who are supposedly, and I use the term supposedly loosely because I am not well versed in a lot of the biblical scriptures or the history. I'm not really, that's not my forte. But to the best of my knowledge, supposedly the Jews are God's people, right? God's bloodline, basically. Israel is supposed to be their home, is it not? And what have the satanic cults and everything done all this time? The Holocaust, murdering them. And then when they migrated here to the United States, we murder them on a different level. Do you not see that we are repeating everything? And we're still at war. Israel and Jerusalem, there's still war. Pakistan, oh my God, all of that. There's still war. Why? It's religious war, guys. Why is there still religious war going on if it's just because of a prophet being said it was something different? Because it's so much more. It's so much more. If the pyramids are created to be able to harness energy, if human consciousness creates energy, if our government creates mass tragic events to harness negative energy, then maybe spiritual energy is what they're harvesting. And maybe that whole fight for religious property, it's not property. It's for the holy grail, I guess, like the holy ground. It's for God's kingdom. Just a thought. Anyway, like I said, when it comes to religious stuff, I'm not too in depth with all that. But as a targeted individual, being Jewish, being adopted, having my inheritance taken, being discredited as potentially suicidal or having street theater to try to make me violent, including where I'm at right now. These women want me to be violent. Don't get me wrong, I kind of want to be violent, but I'm not gonna. And or um, having a mental breakdown for discredibility and finding out that not just me, but people with my last name, which means my bloodline, were also in history in the public records shown as having these same discreditabilities, being discredited by law enforcement, Masons, Eastern Stars, gangsters, mafia, satanic cults. All positions of power have been taken by the shadow government. This is what we talk about when we talk about the shadow government. We're talking about people that are abusing their power to do things like legalize human trafficking, legalize torture, legalize using humans for any and every purpose that they want, as if we are not sovereign and as if we do not have a right to consent or non-consent. There's a bigger agenda. The transhuman agenda is to create dominion over human thought. Another form of slavery. You think it's all fun and games to put a chip in your hand and be like, oh, I just swipe and I'm on a plane. Yeah, well, what if you swipe and all of a sudden all your credits or Bitcoin is gone because somebody swiped past you and hacked your little chip? If we're cyborgs, we've seen this. Ghost in the Shell. We've seen this, not just in animes, in movies, Matrix, in books, 1984, where they talk about this. Why do you think these things have already been created? This has already happened, people. Ladies and gentlemen, history continues to repeat itself. The transhuman agenda is halfway complete, where they are trying to chip us, and we already have nanotechnology in us, so they want to control who lives, who dies, who submits, and who stays compliant with their agenda. The New World Order. Is that the New World Order you want? Because that's not what I want. Mind blown? I know. Open your eyes, do some reading, go on Rumble, look up Catherine Horton, look up Marilyn Ferguson with her book, The Aquarian Conspiracy and Aquarius Now. I mean, there's so many good things out there. Go into mythology. You will find that mythology and religion have very similar stories. History is repeating itself over and over again. When will we learn? When will we grow? When will we evolve? Higher consciousness people. That is all that Christ wants. We're capable of it. It's time to do it.